qualifications instead of talking about smut.
I wish it wasn't a negative tone. I've tried to keep it positive. Ms. Rutledge took it off into a ditch.
We're a few days away from finding out which GOP Attorney General candidate emerges from an ugly slugfest. What's their prospects come November? Plus updates on a couple key runoffs. Making a push to legalize marijuana outright? Supporters are collecting signatures. Will Arkansas become the next Colorado? And lawmakers still tossing around the idea of holding a session during the summer. Our legislative and political long tables are in place. Capitol View starts now.
From the Victory Studios in downtown Little Rock, this is Capitol View with your host, David Goins.
And good Sunday morning to you. Welcome to Capitol View. I'm David Goins. Thanks for being with us. Lots to cover this morning. Bill Vickery and Jessica Deloach join us just a little bit later. But first, we begin this morning with our legislative long table. I want to welcome back Benton State Representative Kim Hammer to Capitol View and welcome State Senator, former mayor and current State Senator from Cabot, Eddie Joe Williams. Thank you, gentlemen.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, so you guys have been working over an audit. I know you're the co-chair of the audit committee. Busy week for you guys. What's going on as it relates specifically to the Medicaid in the schools program? There seems to be probably some irregularities there. What are you guys finding out?
What the audit revealed from the legislative audit point of view was that that there's questionable billing practices, and so that was the main focus of the audit. And also, one thing it did was put under the microscope the amount of Medicaid dollars that are flowing through the school, and so there was also some questions as to CARC and one of the firms that's affiliated with it. So it just kind of brought to light some of the issues involving Medicaid dollars being spent in school for services provided.
Is this the last time we're going to hear about this? I mean, where do you see this going from here?
I think it'll probably come back around, but today's meeting was a very enlightening meeting, and I think it probably, for those that haven't ever really focused on Medicaid dollars being spent in school for services being provided, it was a good step toward bringing people up to speed as to how much Medicaid is involved in the school system. And so I would expect other things to come, and I don't necessarily expect anything negative out of that. I think it's going to be a very productive process to see the involvement of the two entities working together.
Okay, so are schools getting a good deal here? Are they not maybe managing correctly? I mean, what's kind of your takeaway?
Well, one thing came out of the meeting today is that ultimately the responsibility for the Medicaid dollars that are being run through the schools, either through third-party billing or being billed by the schools themselves, and each one is an entity to its own, is that each school is responsible so that if something is not right in the billing procedures, documentation is not right, verification process is not right, then, as they say, the buck stops with each individual school. So I think each individual school needs to do a good examination of how they're doing business, because it could come back to rest on them. If there is a recouping of money, it would be taken from the individual district.
Senator Williams, let me bring you in here, kind of jump into the Senate chamber. What was your kind of impression of this audit report, because you sat through that meeting on Friday?
Well, I sat through that meeting, and of course the last 2 days we've spent in some of the subcommittees, which I sat in, one of them state agencies, and the Geological Society had some issues. What we found out was we were doing the audits, but we weren't giving that audit to the board. So we didn't see the corrections taking place. So I think through this process, and Audit does a great job talking about these with the schools. The good thing is Audit is available. They're available to go to the schools, point those issues out, and put a corrective action in place.
I know Geological Survey and the Fire Board was basically just spending more than was in their budget.
Spending more, right? You know, for my days as mayor, you've got 45 days after the first of the year to get your bills paid for the previous year, or at least you have to make it known. They were waiting until June and July, and we're talking about a substantial amount of money. So what we did, we turned that over to the Attorney General's office, and Geological Society is one that just kind of flies under the radar screen. And so I think we're going to see some improvements in that.
Okay, so not good bookkeeping there. Either one of y'all, any concerns about the, I guess, the incentive program for companies that the Director of Economic Development, Grant Tennille, kind of talked about, that program? But basically, you know, if businesses spend money to improve their businesses, there's a tax break, but does it really translate to job growth?
Well, and sometimes it's difficult to measure, but I'll say this, I think overall the programs that have been implemented, we've seen some good results, to be honest with you. There were a couple of issues. There were some senators and representatives that had an interest in it, but I think their questions was answered adequately. And when you start dealing with that much money and government money or tax money in a private sector, you have to be careful. And I think Grant Tennille and that group does a good job with it.
Okay, well let's transition here. We know there's always meetings at the Capitol in between sessions, but there's also talk this summer of you guys perhaps having a session. It's kind of percolated under the surface. From your perspective in the Senate, what are you seeing as far as the possibility of a special session on a number of topics, really?
Well, the one that everyone's talking about is teachers' insurance. Mm-hmm. If we do nothing, there's another increase coming down the road. And there's a couple of phases, a couple of laws that's been written. One of them has to do with your spouse. We really don't have a good system if someone is legally divorced or legally separated or divorced. How do we catch that? We could implement that. If your spouse has insurance, should we require you to have their insurance instead of the school insurance? So there's several opportunities out there. The one it's got most people talking is part-time employees.
Right.
I visited with my superintendent. We've got about 140 part-time employees.
Is that a hurdle that people can overcome?
It's an issue. It's an issue. In so many cases, school districts feel like these part-time employees are so crucial. Cafeteria workers. We may have 3 cafeteria workers in Cabot High School that are full-time, and maybe half a dozen that come in from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock, but you have to have those people. And of the 140 that's in Cabot School District that are viewed as part-time, there's only 30 of them that have the insurance.
So no answer there yet on the part-time employees. We'll kind of see from both
I think they separated the 2 out.
Yeah.
So we will have an opportunity to vote both. Either one of them, Bill 1 or 2, will have a substantial savings for the teachers in their insurance.
Rates came out, I believe, on Friday for teacher insurance, so you can kind of see those rates are going to be what they are unless unless some interaction is done. Real quickly, Sheriff's Association during the week as well expressed concern about obviously the jail overcrowding issue. Representative Hammer, probably about less than a minute here. Your thoughts on the probability of the legislature coming up with support for something like that, or what's next on that front?
I think anybody that wants to add anything to the teacher's insurance, which is originally what got a special session on the table to be discussed about, is going to have to do a real good sales job in order to convince the legislators, because one thing I think the governor and we as legislators are in agreement with, we want it short and sweet and try to keep it as minimal as possible. Otherwise, it just kind of opens up Pandora's box. Not to say those issues are not important.
Sure.
They are, and we've got to address them. I'm not sure a special session would be the format to do that in.
So maybe sheriffs and jails wait till January?
Could. I think it's possible. I mean, even if there's one in latter part of the year, there could be one. The other item that most people are not talking about is the video lottery.
Right. Monitor games. Yeah.
Monitor games,
yeah.
And there's no one in the state of Arkansas assumed that we were going to do casino-style gambling in a local bar.
We'll keep watching.
So that's an issue for a lot of us.
For sure, monitor games, teacher insurance, and the sheriffs now. So you guys are supposed to be part-time legislators, but you guys are up there a lot. We appreciate it. Senator Eddie Joe Williams and Representative Kim Hammer, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, well, coming up after a quick break, marijuana legalization on the table thanks to a new ballot title making the rounds. How the law would drastically change if it's passed. I'm David Goins. You're watching Capitol View on Sunday morning.